meeting in order at 10 a.m. I'd like to start with the pledges. And if I can have Michael Hutton from Lubbock, Texas, to come up and do the U.S. pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Carmen Williams from Metro Tex, do the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, and indivisible.
Agenda item number 2, the chair would entertain a motion for an excused absence for Commissioner Harvey Renee Lowe. I think she has what all of us have had sometime. So moved. Second. Motion by Commissioner Woodruff, second by Commissioner Pena. All those in favor? Aye. Any abstaining? Any against? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Agenda item number 3. Welcome to TREC. This is our February meeting. It's always an exciting meeting because we have a bunch of Texas realtors here. They're having their winter meeting. So if you're a Texas realtor, stand up. Let us know you're here. Excellent. Not only do you get to attend the meeting, you also get CE credit up to 4 hours, okay? You will sign in, you will sign out. In the old days, it was only the February meeting where you got CE. You can also get CE at the regular meetings. We will have a meeting in San Antonio on May the 5th, part of us moving the commission out of Austin at least one meeting a year. So this year will be in San Antonio, May the 5th. My name is Scott Kestner. I'm chairman of the commission. This is maybe my last meeting as chairman. I told someone I might be like that gallon of expired milk in the fridge. The only difference is if it's not, I will not sour, okay? I want you to know that the commissioners are here to help move the agency forward, okay? We have 6 brokers, 3 public members. I think most of you realize our role is governance. We help make the rules, adopt the rules. We leave it to staff for the management. We govern, they manage. There's a lot of things, a lot of comments we might get where it asks us to do management. We don't do that. We're strictly here for governance, okay? You can sign up for public comments, agenda item number 16, I believe. If you sign up, just get it to Abby, she'll get it to us, and we will certainly call on you. The game plan is we will get through as many agenda items as possible. I think we'll probably go into executive session about 11:30. I'm estimating about an hour for executive. I always say 45 minutes, it's an hour, so I'm gonna say an hour. Then we will come back from executive and we will finish the agenda items. We have a workshop scheduled for 1 o'clock this afternoon. You are welcome to attend. There is not CE credit, but you're welcome to attend, and that will be upstairs, correct? And so hopefully the time will run as planned, but it never does. But anyway, that's kind of the game plan. First of all, I need to recognize some departing members that have served on our advisory committees. And as each person comes up to give a report, they will tell you exactly what they do at the agency. But the first people I want to recognize, they have served on the Education Standards Advisory Committee. And if you would please come up, we will give you a round of hand. Okay, I will come down here. Are you want to hand them? Okay. Leaving the advisory committee, we thank you for all your work, is Kalela Youngblood, I'm sorry. Mike Crawley. And Ruben Pena. Go a little bit more details on what the Education Standards Advisory Committee does. We use ESAC a lot. They help shape their curriculum and the classes and the requirements to have a license and maintain a license in the state of Texas. The next group I'm going to recognize has served on the Texas Real Estate Inspector Committee, and they are not present, but I still want to give them a round of applause. Brian Carroll. And Bruce Carpenter. I will add, serving on this committee is y'all, it's tough. I mean, they have to maintain standards for inspectors, yet at the same time, keep within the guidelines. And if you're licensed in other states like myself or do real estate in other states, you realize just what a valuable commodity having inspectors licensed and governed by TREC in the state of Texas is, and they do a yeoman's task. So congratulations on that. Okay, agenda item number 5, election of vice chair, and I would seek nominations for vice chair of the Real Estate Commission. Commissioner Russell.
Commissioner, I'd like to recommend that we have Mark Woodruff
Okay.
in that position.
Any other nominations? Okay, seeing none. Congratulations. We will now nominate a person for secretary. Commissioner Pena.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Chance Brown for the position of secretary.
I have a nomination of Chance Brown. Any other nominations? Seeing none, congratulations, Chance Brown. Okay, we have all broker members of the executive, so our rules.
Yeah, so per policy, the chair can appoint a public member to serve on executive committee as an ex officio.
Okay. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to appoint Commissioner Pena. His background in financial and audit has just been an asset to the executive. So you'll be on executive ex officio. Okay? Okay. We normally in this meeting, we appoint liaisons to each advisory committee and whatever enforcement budget, joint audit committee, real estate inspector committee, education standard advisory committee, broker responsible advisory committee, broker lawyer, and the A&M research. Since some of us may be leaving before the next meeting, I would like to keep everybody in the committee they're in. Because if we change it up and then they appoint next month, then we're going to have to change it up again. So the way it's appointed now on enforcement, we have Commissioner Hargraves as chair, Commissioner Pena, and Commissioner Harvey Lowe. On budget committee, we have Commissioner Woodruff as chair, Stuart Bernstein as a committee member, and Barbara Russell. On the audit committee, which is a joint committee between us and the appraisal board, we have current members Ben Pena and Chance Brown. Commission liaison to the Texas Real Estate Inspector Committee is myself and Commissioner Lerner. Commission liaison to the Education Standards Advisory Committee is Commissioner Barbara Russell. Commission to the Broker Responsibility Advisory Committee, also known as BRAC, Commissioner Chance Brown and Commissioner Leslie Lerner. Commission liaison to the Texas Real Estate Broker Lawyer Committee is Commissioner Jason Hargraves, Commissioner Renee Harvey Lowe, and myself. And ex officio to the Texas A&M University Texas Real Estate Research Center is Commissioner Barbara Russell. And so if there's everybody good with that, we will leave them the way they are until changes are made, when changes are made, if changes are made. All right. That concludes agenda item number 7. I am going to move to agenda item number 25. Liz Myers from McConnell Jones is here, and we will go ahead and let her present. So we will move to agenda item 25. Good morning again. How are you? Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Okay, for the record, my name is Liz Myers with McConnell Jones. We serve as your internal auditors. So Okay, I'm just going to keep going forward while she's working on the slides. They are in your package. I'll be covering 3 items with you today: the financial services procurement audit, the public funds investment audit, and a follow-up on a resolution on one open finding that also was related to the financial services group. First, I'll cover the procurement audit. The objective of this audit was to evaluate procurement's competitive business bid process to ensure its effectiveness and efficiencies while verifying compliance with state requirements, regulations, and adherence to the state procurement and contract management guide. The scope period for this was September 1, 2022 to May 31st, 2024. Focus areas were compliance with the Government Code 2155, the competitive bid solicitation requirements, compliance with the State Procurement and Contract Management Guide for competitive bids, the competitive solicitation process, and the competitive solicitation evaluation process. The inherent risk for this area is high, the residual risk is low. Okay, next slide, please. Keep going. Okay, one more. And now we're caught up. Thank you. Okay, we rated the controls for procurement as generally effective. There were no findings, but we had 2 opportunities for improvement. An opportunity for improvement is an area where the internal control is effective as designed, but can be enhanced. Management does not need to respond to the opportunities for improvement, and they can choose to implement or not. Next slide, please. For the solicitation and evaluation process of this audit, we had no findings and no recommendations noted. Next slide, please. With regards to compliance with the Government Code Chapter 2155 and the State Procurement and Contract Management Guide, there were no findings, but we had 2 opportunities for improvement. The first opportunity was to create a dashboard to monitor key metrics using existing tools like SharePoint or Excel, and this would just be able to provide them to condense the information from several sources into a visual format to help identify areas for improvement. And then the second opportunity was to add a management review signature section to the PCC checklist so that it just shows a support in one area. They are doing a review process. However, it was done via saying that they had completed it was done in email, which can be eliminated after a certain time frame, which is not unusual. Next slide, please. The next slide is the Procurement Funds Investment Act, or we also call it the PFIA. And with regards to this one, the purpose is to assess TREC's compliance with the requirements of the PFIA and to verify what is recorded on the agency's financial system and reported to the commissioners and board agree to the investment statements and the financial system. The scope period was September 1, 2022 to August 31, 2024, and we looked at the investment transactions, investment reconciliations, investment reporting, investment officer, commissioner, and board member training, as well as compliance with the TREC investment policy and PFIA requirements. Again, the inherent risk here was high, but the residual risk is low. Next slide, please. So with this one, we rated the control as generally effective as well, with 1 finding and 2 opportunities for improvement. Next slide, please. So with regards to the investment policy, there were no findings, no recommendations. Next slide, please. With regards to the investment policy being in compliance with PFIA, there are again no findings, no recommendations made. Next slide, please. With regards to the investment officer, commissioner, and board member training, again, no findings, no recommendations. And next slide. With regards to the investment reporting, we did have 2 opportunities. Oh, we went once too many. One back one. Sorry. We were doing so well. Okay. So in the investment reporting, we did have 1 finding. The investment holding reports for the funds 3058 through the periods of FY23 and FY24 each contain discrepancies when compared to the Texas Treasury Safekeeping Trust Company statements These discrepancies included reporting areas with regards to overall cash receipts and disbursements, investment purchase dates, and investment purchase amounts. We recommended that the TREC should ensure that the investment officer review and sign-off process includes verification of all dates and amounts for each investment held. And then next slide, with regards to the 2 opportunities for improvement, they should list this. We recommend they list the sources of the monthly beginning cash balances available as separate line items instead of one altogether, on the monthly staff holdings report to provide additional clarity, and then also to develop and certify investment holding reports quarterly as opposed to monthly for presentation at the commission meetings. Next slide. Now, I wanted just to follow up on the audit finding that related to financial services as well, and it has been fully addressed. You can go to the next slide. On this one, the finding to be addressed was the detailed budget summary by LBB Business Objects Report did not equal the total amounts of the USAS report. So we have 2 reporting financial systems that were not tying out. And this was a system issue with regards to the CAP system, and they were able to resolve this by going directly through the comptroller's office to have them solve this system issue. And so now this has been resolved. We are beginning the follow-up review of the remaining 6 open findings that TREC has, and they're all related to IT, and I will present those at the next meeting. So if that's the end of my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, item number 8, report from Education Standards Advisory Committee, Director of Education Examination Services, Jennifer Wheeler. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Kestner and Commissioners, and to everybody who's joined us here today. I am, of course, Jennifer Wheeler, Director of Education and Exams. I am going to be presenting the ESAC report today on behalf of the Chair of the committee, Bill Stedham, who was unable to be here today. The first ESAC meeting of 2025 took place on January 6th. The meeting opened with an introduction of new members who include Christina Valero, Christopher Gonzalez, and Paul Silverman. The committee recognized reappointed members, Bill Stedham, Candy Loonsman, and Kara Bang. The group then participated in an annual advisory committee training covering the core functions of ESAC, the commission, and the committee meeting process. The advisory committee training was led by General Counsel Abby Lee. An election of officers was held, which resulted in the reappointment of Bill Stedham and Byron Underwood as committee chair and vice chair. Cassie Scott was elected as secretary. ESAC had previously recommended amendments to a set of rules regarding student identification requirements and exam proctoring. These changes included removing proctoring requirements for pre-licensing course final exams and certain other courses delivered asynchronously or via technology. To be consistent with those recommendations, the committee then considered striking the rule language that requires course final exams to be closed book. To give stakeholders an opportunity to weigh in on these changes, ESAC recommended withdrawing the current rules as proposed, and staff will be drafting language for ESAC's review at its April meeting with the possibility of a new recommendation coming to you all in May. The Texas Real Estate Inspector Committee was also consulted on ESAC's recommendations, and they have expressed support for the ESAC initiative. And this concludes the ESAC report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Agenda item number 9, Chair Ty Williams will do a report on the Broker Responsibility Advisory Committee. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having me today, and thank everyone for joining us as well. Let me start with this. BRAC held its first meeting this year on the 15th of January. We also actually held a teleconference meeting on 12/3/2024. That teleconference was a review of what staff had come up with and put together for a potential form that we were looking at putting together for experience points and things for the broker's license. On 1/15/2025, the election of officers came up, and this is how it went as follows. So the chair, I was reelected as chair for the committee. Assistant chair was Brian Sales, and secretary Marion Napoleon was elected as well. So congratulations to everyone there. We also had our advisory committee training, and that went well with staff. Regarding broker license and education, we went through this, and I know that we've talked about this for years now, and we've really come up with some great ideas and some good things in the past, and I think we've come up with something very unique and bold, to say the least. So I'm going to go over that with you right now. The group believes that they have found a good alternate path to allow people with more experience and supervisors a way to make getting their broker's license more achievable. As you know, some of the feedback we've received states that they may have the experience and have done a large number of transactions, but don't have the education piece completed yet. Or we hear from supervisors that have been managing teams and other agents for years, but since they do not produce themselves, are unable to meet all the criteria to be a broker. As you know, the feedback we have received over the past year, the majority of the comments stated that they do not necessarily want us to make the process of getting a broker's license easier. They just want it to be more achievable. And here's our concept. This is what we've come up with so far. Agents with large amount of transaction experience, whether it be residential sales, property management, commercial sales, using that experience and those transactions up and above the minimum required to achieve your broker's license, exchanging that experience for up to 300 credit hours of CE towards your broker's license. For the supervisors that manage sales agents, whether it be 1 or 100, as long as they are supervising the transaction and are notated as such on that transaction under the brokerage information, they would also be able to count those transactions up and above the minimum broker's license in exchange for up to 300 credit hours as well towards their broker's license. This program would not get you to your broker's license 100%. However, it would allow you to get there with some extra education, all while not lowering the standards for Texas consumers. We have more tweaking to do in order to make a full recommendation. Summer, thank you so much, and your media team. You've been awesome and really gracious enough to put out a news bulletin and a newsletter for us to request information from license holders and comments on our proposal, especially in the rural areas. We're really excited to hear from them because we want to make sure that all license holders are benefited or impacted in a positive way for this, what we're trying to do. We plan at our next meeting on April 8th to review those comments and make any final changes to our proposal. Our next meeting again will be held on April 8th, 2025.
Any questions? Okay, I believe we're going to see this during the workshop, and to make it short, experience will count toward hours, but you'll still minimum required to be 600 hours.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And just kind of give everybody a heads up, once it goes through the workshop, it might be proposed. Once a rule is proposed, then it's proposed, public comment, posted in the registry, and then can theoretically be adopted. But that will be part of the workshop this afternoon. Thank you for your work on this. Okay. Next up, Chair Lee Warren, report by the Texas Real Estate Inspector Committee. Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, I like the little note. That's good. The Inspector Committee met on January 27th for the first meeting of the year. At this meeting, the slate of officers was selected for the year, and the subcommittees were chosen. I was elected to serve as the chair. Mike Morgan will be vice chair, and Stephanie Huser will be the secretary. There were a number of public comments that were received this time around since the last meeting. One was regarding licensed inspectors utilizing specialized equipment such as zip levels or thermal imaging cameras. The concern for some is that these tools are being used during the course of an inspection, and due to a lack of possible knowledge or proper training, the inspector may not be able to interpret the results properly, thereby causing unnecessary concern for potential buyers. Another comment centered around proper use of advertising by inspectors. Also, some multi-inspector firms may be offering other services based on the inspection results that could be a violation of TREC rules, such as a handyman service, electrical, so on and so forth. These two items will be discussed at future meetings, either in the SOP or the full inspector committee. A third comment mentioned that it may be difficult for those interested in obtaining a license to find someone to perform the practicum training. Due to recent legislative changes, TREC is not allowed to post license holders' information on the website. So TREC staff is going to be looking into ways that we might be able to make finding a practicum instructor easier for applicants to help lower those barriers for entry. TREC staff provided information regarding applications received and testing results for the last few years. The goal was to see if there was a substantial change in the patterns from the previous pre-licensure education path and the new, more streamlined one. The data provided did not provide any insight that there was a large impact from the new process, which was good. Inspector Committee and TREC staff have also been working on a legislative change that would require 4 hours of pre-licensure education for apprentice inspectors, where currently there is no education requirement. This will be to provide the apprentice with a good core knowledge of the standards of practice prior to being licensed and starting inspections. This is something we've been working on for some time, and we're hopeful that this will get some traction in the legislature this year. We'll also be starting work on the new version of the legal SOP course, which will come out on September 1 of this year. This will be the third version of this 8-hour required course by staff, IAC members, and other stakeholders. With each revision, we have been able to produce a better course with great content that is much more consistent across the state than the course was previously. There was yet another disciplinary action taken against an inspector whose license had previously expired. Although these occurrences are not vast in numbers, the fact that there are any inspectors performing inspections without a license in Texas is a cause for concern. I would urge all sales agents, brokers, and inspectors to verify that any inspector they are referring to verify that they are actively licensed by looking them up on TREC's website. If they're not, we as license holders are required to report this activity to TREC. Our next meeting is April 21st, and with that, I will answer any questions you may have.
Lee, I've got a question on that disciplinary action. This person was advertising as a property consultant, but not an inspector. And I think when you told the agents, verify their license, how are they advertising that? And there was.
So this has been an ongoing thing. It's been happening for a number of years. We have one person that was licensed, that I think his license expired back in 07 or 08, and he's been fined over $40,000 by continuing to do inspections. There's some people that try to get around the rule by calling it a consultation instead of an inspection, which the way the rules are written, it does not apply. TREC rules are very specific on when it is considered an inspection and at what point kind of triggers that information. But I personally have run into situations where I get on a list, a broker's list of referred, there's 6 or 7 inspectors they refer, and the first thing I do is I look them all up. And in one in particular, there were 6 on the list, 2 were expired, and 1 was deceased. So the one that was deceased, I'm pretty sure they're not calling anybody back, but I just encourage people to really look at their list, because the license status changes, often sometimes. So and as brokers and agents, you could be liable if you refer somebody who isn't licensed, especially if something goes wrong.
And there was also a time where people would try to do partial inspections.
Or walk-through inspections.
Which is in violation of the standards of practice,
Absolutely.
correct?
Absolutely.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Okay, the next agenda item is co-chair broker lawyer, John George, reporting on broker lawyer committee. We should have moved you to agenda item 12, since everything you do relates to the number 12, evidently, with all the Texas realtors. So, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Kestner, and good morning, commissioners. As you can tell or have heard, there's a few things going on with our contracts. And the Broker Lawyer Committee recently met on January 10th, which was only a week after these new forms that we have were put out there. And so I'm first going to step back before I get into the commission language to report on some of the other things that we discussed during our meeting. And first, you'll see before you today, there's one form up for adoption. It's the notice of buyer termination, which adds language concerning the buyer's termination under paragraph 2A, third-party financing addendum, which now requires written documentation of the lender's reasons for denial. We didn't receive, as a committee, any comments on that, and we didn't make any changes to what was proposed by the commission at the last meeting. The next one that we discussed during the meeting, or next topic, is what is the definition of a legal holiday under the contracts? There's a lot of confusion right now on what qualifies as a legal holiday. And what is meant by the contracts, and what we discussed during our meeting, is it points to doesn't point to, but the definition of legal holidays in the local government code, specifically chapter 662.021. And it's a very broad definition of holiday. And the committee discussed seeking the feedback of the commission on their thoughts on how broad do we actually want that definition to be. Right now, it includes both state and federal holidays, except for a couple exemptions. In the state holidays include Confederates Heroes Day, it includes Texas Independence Day, Emancipation Day, LBJ Day, which we don't think that many in the practitioners or the public understand to be actual holidays. I think it's more in lines of we think about when the title company's open or the federal holidays. So we would like the commission's feedback that we can then take back and discuss at the committee on what we actually intend by that language. Do we want it to be more in line with what I think the general practice is that we see, or do we want to keep it broad and tied to the actual statute? So we discussed language there that we can potentially add to better define it to stay the way it is, or potentially narrow it if it's something that we intend to do on that side. We also had a great presentation at our meeting by Brian Sledge on water issues. Brian is one of the leading water law experts here in Texas and represents many of the groundwater districts. And within that, Brian was discussing the availability of water being a major issue as we move forward in this state. And that the recent changes to the law, especially with ETJs and property owners being able to exempt themselves out of the ETJ, that the services are not being provided by the cities like they used to in the past. There's more of a hurdle. And this is becoming more of an issue, not just for developments, but for single-family housing. So we had a presentation there. We brought that back and tied into this with some of the Sunset Commission review management recommendations in terms of disclosures. And so we're taking that back and looking at potential disclosures to make in regards to specific water rights, groundwater and surface water issues. We also, with the Sunset Commission, received management recommendations to look at various disclosures to the contracts related to insurance, related to above ground storage tanks, and a couple other matters that tie into the like private roads. We're taking that back to a disclosure working group to look at those recommendations and see if we want to add to the disclosures that are in the contract. We also looked at the backup contract addendum and adding notice or a receipt page for the additional option fee and the additional earnest money that's now allowed under the staged backup contract addendum. No longer do you have to put all the earnest money or option money up front. You can stage it to put a certain amount up front and a certain amount more when you go into second place. So we're looking at adding additional language there as well. And of course, what's on front of everybody's mind is the paragraph 12 commission language in the page 10. And there's a lot of confusion that's in the market that we think is hopefully largely education-based. This is new language that is, the license holders in the state and the public as well have used certain forms that the association, the Trade Association, Texas Realtors, has put out there over the last 6 months to a year. With the new language that we have in the contracts, certain of those forms have gone away and have been replaced by the language that's in the contract itself, paragraph 12. And with that, we took the comments back. As everybody knows, we read every comment from every license holder, every member of the public. Dozens upon dozens, hundreds and hundreds of comments. And going through those, they were largely repetitive of what we had when we made the initial change to the contract. And so in looking at that, we think that with the education that comes out, we're hoping it solves many of the issues. As the agents learn these contracts, as the public gets used to using the new contracts, we're hoping that's going to solve a lot of the issues. But we're open to taking additional steps. And we're open to looking at how do we clarify to make it better. But at our meeting on January 10th, with the contracts being a week old, we didn't feel we had enough data at the time to make an informed decision on whether changing anything up. I think by and large, everybody's tired of contract changes. Everybody wants to learn what we have and to figure it out, but at the same time, we want it to be consistent and for the public to be informed in a very clear and consistent contract. The language that's in paragraph 12, I can answer any questions that you might have on it today. But the one comment that we got over and over again is not understanding how paragraph 12 works in with page 10. Paragraph 12 being a seller contribution, that's coming out of the seller's pocket. Page 10 just being a disclosure that the amount of cooperative compensation between brokers. Those are two separate amounts. Page 10 is not enforceable, it's just informational only, but those two amounts are intended to stack on top of each other. And I welcome any specific questions that you have and to answer those, but our next meeting's on June 13th, and we'll take what the legislature does in the meantime to analyze that with the other changes that we have before us and see if we need to make any additional changes for recommendation.
Commissioner Brown.
As it relates to your question of, is the title company open? Because it's fresh on people's mind, especially in Houston, where we shut down when it gets below about 35 degrees, is what do you do during a freeze and the title company is not open? And so that has come up recently with performance to the 3 days if the title company is not there to take the money. So just a thought process as you look at those, what constitutes holiday or day open, or, yeah.
Snowpocalypse should be a defined holiday in the statute. That's especially here in Texas.
Commissioner Russell? Okay. I'm going to piggyback on what Commissioner Brown said. Legal holiday, I mean, if the title company's open, I mean, I remember years ago, small West Texas town, owner of the title company died. The entire town shut down. It was a Tuesday. It wasn't a legal holiday, but they're not open. And I just don't know how specific we get, but I know y'all will scrub it and do an awesome job. So if not, we'll be back here and comment later. Okay.
And on that, most of the title companies, when they're closed, are tied to the banking holidays. And so the discussion about when a title company is open, you getting to specific words, are tying it to the Federal Reserve holidays when banks are closed and wires can't be sent.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work. Okay, item agenda 12 is a report by the executive committee, myself, and those are found on page 19 through page 12 of your material. We met December 11th at 1 o'clock via teleconference. Went over full-time positions, 158 full-time positions at Texas, at TREC. Average hold time was 48 seconds, 2,216 emails, returning 100% within 24 hours. Call abandon rate was 3.27%. The Facilities Commission has been shutting down power at various buildings, and we got notice in November that our power would be out December 20th through December 23rd. And so with no power, we ran a very skeleton crew with very limited work they could perform. That being said, we met January 8th for executive, and we talked about the hold time went up to an average of about a little over 4 minutes. Well, no power from the 20th to 23rd. This agency was shut down the 24th, 25th, 26th. 24% of all the calls we got in December came within 2 days, okay? Which is just an anomaly. You're not gonna see that again. So, but anyway, we went over that. Also reviewed some enforcement material that the enforcement committee presented, looked at it, sent it out to all the commissioners. Got an update on the ramp project, which we will hear later. And our next meeting is scheduled in March 5th. And like I say, all that information is on your is in your packet on page 9 through 12. Agenda item 13. Commissioner Pena.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Internal Audit Committee met on January 23rd. Those present were Commissioner Brown, TALCB Chair Sarah Oates, and myself, as well as staff, to discuss basically the report that Ms. Myers just presented. So I won't bore you with those details as much as I'd love to talk about internal audit. And we also talked about upcoming internal audits for our audit plan coming up in the next year. So we will be looking at those areas for possible risk assessment and what we can look at as well. So Overall, the meeting went well, and we are pleased to report that everything is going on track with the internal audit. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Okay. Agenda item 14, Director reports regarding agency operations, initiatives, and division updates. Executive Director Chelsea Buckholtz. Good morning again.
Well, good morning. We've just returned from a quick talk at Texas Realtors Executive Board to provide an update from TREC. That was the chair and I this morning. While we were there, we highlighted the recent form changes related to ongoing NAR settlement discussions around compensation. We also mentioned the recent work to learn more about transaction coordinators and showing agents, and pointed them to a recent article on our website. And of course, we provided a short legislative update and an update on our ramp project. Tomorrow, the chair and I will return for a few additional updates with the board of directors, so that coordination with the Texas Realtors Winter Meeting is in full force. And it is really one of the largest opportunities we have to speak with license holders. It's an honor and a privilege to be a part of the events at the winter meeting. There were a few opportunities to do that over the weekend. Our own Vanessa Burgess spoke on a panel, professional development on Saturday, and I'm proud of her efforts there. But I am grateful for the strong relationship with Texas Realtors to make those opportunities prevalent. It provides us with a great access to license holders that helps us learn and develop how we support them better. And of course, many of them are here with us today, so welcome to each of you. We're delighted to have you. One of the ways in which we can engage with more license holders is, just as the chair mentioned, it is to have meetings outside of Austin. And as you know, the chair has made this a priority for each May, for the May commission meeting to be held elsewhere. And so this next meeting will be in San Antonio on May 5th. I think it is a coincidence that we are in San Antonio on Cinco de Mayo, but I just want to make note that it could be fun.
A holiday.
It's a legal holiday. We have many staff reports before you today, and I wanted to highlight just a few of those. First, and the chair mentioned this, but you'll see in our customer service report that we had a higher hold time in December. That will carry over into January, you'll see when those reports come out. But this is due to a heavy call volume at the end of December, really a confluence of events that included a power outage where on a day that we were working, our website was down, our phones were down. It was made pretty much impossible to work other than to just send emails back and forth, along with state holidays of Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and the day after Christmas. So that following day, December 27th, I believe that was a Friday, and then the following Monday were very full days of call volume, and that trickled into the first 2 or so days of January. One of the things that I paid close attention to is just how quickly we recovered from that. We were able to quickly bring that wait time down, and I'm proud of Robert and and the work of his team for handling that heavy call volume with ease. It used to be that those days were the norm, and now they are the anomaly. So I'm proud of those efforts. I also want to highlight the amazing statistics found in the enforcement reports. At the chair's direction, over the last few years, we have worked to reduce the turnaround time of enforcement cases. And I'm proud to highlight that 99% of all cases are now less than a year old. And they have an average time to resolve a case that is less than 75 days. So well done, Mike Malloy and your team. Another operational update is that we continue the ramp project. How many times have I said that? Too many times. But here we are. We are doing that with our vendor Acela, and we have finalized a go-live date that will coincide with the change of our fiscal year. So end of August, beginning of September. We will soon begin communications with our license holders to share details of how this new system, as well as to encourage early renewals, how this new system will affect them, but also just to encourage early renewals during that transition period. As with any transition, there will be a time where you will not be able to interact with the system as we're moving from one to the other. And so we will work very hard to communicate to the license holders affected by that to renew early. Leading to that go live date, we will likely have about a 2-week downtime or pause in license processing. So more to come on all of that, but we are putting a lot of details together for how this rollout will go. We also will provide opportunities to show that new system to you so that you can engage with it and provide your feedback. Later in the agenda, I believe it's agenda item 26, you will address my performance. And I do not want to make that the point of this meeting by any means, but I don't always know how to publicly respond to that process. So I just want to take a moment here to say thank you. Thank you for your feedback that you provided me in your written evaluations. Thank you for your continued confidence in me. I feel like I have my sea legs, but I continue to work to improve my knowledge of the industry, always, and to lead well and to serve the public with wisdom and with character. I'm humbled by your encouragement and your positive feedback, and I genuinely appreciate hearing your directions on how I can improve. I plan to spend this year, my 6th, as the executive director, rolling out this database. Navigating the legislative session with strength and confidence, and continuing to learn from our license holders and engaging with them as much as possible and leading this agency well. Grateful for each of you in the ways in which we collectively partner to ensure TREC's success. One final note. Between now and our next meeting, personal financial statements for each of you and myself are due. So be mindful of that deadline at the end of April. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Ramp, that's great. It's going to start into the fiscal year.
It's happening.
Texas Realtors in attendance. Remember, there's going to be some delays in renewing at the end of the month, so renew early, okay? Believe me, we will communicate, but I'm as guilty as most realtors and agents that are going to renew on the 29th, and it's only February, but thank goodness it's a leap year, right?
That's right.
So,
now, I should mention, as a part of that transition, one of the things we're doing is we're transitioning away from all paper applications, paper forms. We are also doing away with all paper forms of payment. That means we'll be an online payment system. So that is part of the reason for some downtime. We will receive kind of the very last of those pieces of paper, process them, put them into our old system, and then we have to move old system to new system, make sure it works, and then get it ready for public use. So that's kind of the reason for a little downtime. Anything else?
Chelsea,
Yes,
I think
sir.
it would make sense to send out an email campaign prior to going live and just to remind everybody that, hey, this is coming on, so renew early. Not like most of us that renew our licenses on the last day possible.
We had talked about, right now we do 90, 60, 30-day renewal notices. And what we talked about doing were early days in these plans, but we're hoping to just throw the kitchen sink at everyone in terms of communication. But we will do those 90, 60, 30-day notices earlier than 90, 60, 30 days so that people are aware.
Yeah, it might be helpful also at all the events that, local associations, everybody broadcast that information that we will be going through that transition, and sometimes they don't go as you would like them to go. So just, I would like to.
It's gonna go really well.
Extend a request to have a little bit of grace while we go through this transition, so.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Let's get that. Anything else?
okay. Next up, Robert Hood, Director of Customer Relations Division. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Robert Hood, Director of the Customer Relations Division, and good morning to those in the audience. Just a little recap of what we do in our division. We are the agency's centralized customer service hub. We respond to inquiries from Texas consumers, license holders, and applicants through various channels, including phone, email, and in-person visits. We are fully staffed with 31 dedicated employees. Today, I am pleased to present on the status of our division. On page 17 in your meeting materials, you'll find the Customer Relations Division report for December 2024. The overall average hold time for December was 4 minutes and 30 seconds. This is not our norm. 14 out of the 17 working days for the month, we were able to stay below our 2-minute threshold, but the last 2 days of the month and the year, we were inundated with calls. Out of the 13,000 calls we received in December, 3,000 of those calls were presented on the last 2 days of the month. So just like you mentioned earlier, that was 24% of the calls for the entire month were received on the last 2 days of the month. During this time, we had 18 customer service representatives taking phone calls and processing emails. 95% of the calls we received were TREC related, and 5% of the calls were related to board calls. Our hold time since December has returned to somewhat normal. In January, we ended about 17,000 calls for the month, and our hold time was just over 2 minutes. Next, on page 18, you will find the comparison of calls and the hold times for the last 13 months. Once again, you'll see that December hold time was definitely an outlier month. Our average hold time for the past 13 months is 1 minute and 15 seconds. Our average number of calls per month for the last 13 months was 14,500 calls. Next, on page 19, this is our 13-month comparison of emails that were processed. We average about 3,000 emails per month, and we have returned a response to all these emails within 1 business day. Next, on page 20, this is our fiscal year comparison. One more page. There we go. This is our fiscal year comparison of calls versus our hold times. 4 months of call volume is reflected in fiscal year 2025, with an average hold time for this fiscal year is just under 2 minutes with about 13,000 calls. In conclusion, I appreciate your attention to the progress of the Customer Relations Division. I welcome your questions regarding our strategies and performance.
Any questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Job well done.
Thank you.
I wonder how many of those calls at the end of the month were checking on their ethics class. You think some of those probably came in too? Okay. Denise Sample, Director of Licensing. Oh, Jen Wheeler, I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm marking them off before I get there. Jen Wheeler, Director of Education Examination Services. You got to pass the exam before you have a license. You have to go first.
Fair enough. All right, good morning again, Chair Kestner and Commissioners. Before I get to reports, I'd just like to give you all, like Robert did, a brief synopsis of what the education team does. My team is responsible for reviewing education provider applications and course applications to ensure they meet statutory and rule requirements. Courses must be reviewed to ensure both content is accurate and relevant, and course design and delivery align themselves with adult learning theories and strategies that provide for mastery-based learning. My team also consists of a curriculum developer who supports the development of broker responsibility, legal update 1 and 2, and the inspector legal ethics and standards of practice courses. We also have an audit and compliance program that we've been building and expanding for several years with more advancement to come. We liaison with Pearson VUE, the agency's currently contracted exam vendor, to ensure efficient and effective administration of the licensing examinations. Annually, we work with Pearson VUE to perform an analysis of the licensing exams for sales agents, brokers, and inspectors, at which time we review, write, and revise test items and ensure they are testing on topics that are representative of the minimally competent license holder upon issuance of a license. With that general overview, I'll move on to reports unless you have any questions. Okay. The education reports begin on page 21 of your materials and extend through page 26. The influx of applications received and approved continues to remain steady. Fiscal year comparison of total applications approved in 2024 over 2023 reflected an increase of about 3% overall. However, the overall increase from 2022 to 2024 was about 21%. So we regularly monitor these trends to determine where we need to anticipate focus. And that concludes my report for you today, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions? Okay,
Okay,
very good, thank you. Denise Sample, Director of Licensing. It's really you this time, okay?
Happy to go in any order necessary. Good morning, Chair Kastner and Commissioners. I'm Denise Sample, Director of Licensing. And just as a brief introduction to what the Licensing Division does, our role is to safeguard the public interest and protect consumers of real estate services by ensuring that license holders meet the minimum education, experience, and examination requirements before a license or registration is issued. Each of these go out with Chelsea Buckholtz's signature at the bottom, so we want to make sure we've checked all of those boxes before that gets issued. We are currently in what I'd call the heaviest part of the ramp project that impacts the licensing team. So it's configuration and testing of all the different ways the license can be obtained and renewed and go from active to inactive and back. And so we are, this is the fun part, I'll say, as kind of a nerd when it comes to the new system. This is exciting, but it is very, very, tight deadlines that we're turning around right now while maintaining the regular part of our job. So this is I wanted to elaborate a little bit on that ramp update. So the regular monthly reports start on page 27 of your materials and starts with initial applications received, and this is data through December of 2024. We compare it for the same period in the previous fiscal year. So you'll note there that our application totals are broken out by license type, so broker in the top right, then inspector bottom left, and sales agents on the bottom right. The next page carries over. It's easement and right-of-way applications received, and then the new business entity registrations. As a reminder, those are the ones that started last January. So we'll soon have comparison data to report in the months going forward. But these are the registrations that are exempt from having to be licensed. The next page is the renewal activity. And these are numbers that we hone in on, particularly the renewal rate in bold on the bottom of each license type. And this is a comparison of 2 fiscal years prior to the fiscal year to date, because all of our licenses and registrations renew on a 2-year cycle. The next page is the license and registration counts. You might see, as we are, a slight decrease in the total license holder counts. Right now, it's about 0.09% compared to the previous month, and a comparison of December 23 to December 24 is actually a difference of 0.02%, but that is a number that we're monitoring closely. The next page of your materials breaks down those license holder counts by license type. And the last report is the application processing time. This is the number of days on average it takes for the licensing team to process an initial application. So it's cumulative of all the times that it takes us to review documents that are received. It excludes the time that an applicant takes to provide additional documents to staff. and to pass the exam and clear the fingerprint-based background check. And that concludes my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Brown.
Denise, so we don't have, because we don't have year-over-year comparison for business entity registration,
Not yet.
do we think that the relatively precipitous drop in broker business entity is correlated there? Like people just not renewing their broker business entity and going to the registration, or no?
That is not information that we've been able to track. We still get a lot of questions of sales agents that don't know which route to go. And so a lot of those calls are still coming in with those applicants requesting clarification to know which one to apply for. It's hard to tell because the broker licenses are on a 2-year renewal cycle. A lot of the advice that we gave initially was you can't have both. Let that business entity broker license expire if what you do in fact need is this business entity registration. So with the timing of that, that's not really data that I can report on, but it's definitely something I can look at, maybe collect how many people still ask that question, but we haven't made that connection. Any other questions?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up will be Director of Enforcement, Michael Malloy. Good morning.
Good morning. Chair Kestner, Commissioners, Mike Malloy, Director of Enforcement. Before diving into my reports, I'd like to give a brief background on the Enforcement Division for those who may not be familiar with their division or the complaint process. So we handle the investigations and enforcement of consumer-related complaints involving license holders and unlicensed activity. We also review the applications and current license holders with background history concerns. So when a consumer complaint is filed, we follow a structured process. First, we conduct a jurisdictional review to determine if this falls under our authority. Generally, the individual being complained about needs to be conducting brokerage activity. If the complaint doesn't meet that threshold, it's dismissed. For cases within our jurisdiction, we launch an investigation to determine if we can meet our burden of proof. Cases that meet this requirement are resolved in different ways, such as agreed orders. These are the cases where the respondent accepts the proposed disciplinary action. Those are the signed documents that you guys receive on a regular basis. We also have our final default orders. And these occur when a respondent doesn't respond to the allegation and results basically in a default judgment. Only a very small number of our cases go to the State Office of Administrative Hearing, or we call SOA, but we treat every one of our cases as though it may go there. This ensures we're always prepared to meet our burden of proof, and we actually have 2 SOA cases that are on the agenda for later on today. Additionally, we have the complaints that only deal with advertisements that goes through our advertising compliance program. And in a nutshell, the license holders that have advertisement issues that are complained against, they're given opportunity to correct that. If they correct it within typically 14-day period, those cases will be summarily dismissed as they're considered resolved. And if they're not resolved within that period of time, or maybe we grant an extension, if they're not, then they go through the same process as our typical complaint process. So the enforcement team, we remain committed to protecting Texas consumers who use our license holders. Last year, we opened 5,999 cases and closed 6,169 cases with an average resolution time of 92 days, which has been a significant improvement over the past few years. Moving to my reports on page 33, broker and sales cases received has continued to rise compared to the same period last year. And our case openings remained on pace with last year's case openings. Moving on to page 34, the case aging report. Yes.
Can you discuss what application investigation means?
Application investigations. So that's when someone actually has a license. So that's noted for people that have background history related matters.
And so closed means that there was no,
They've been resolved one way or another. So we may review in the background, and, those may be cases that have gone, towards an agreed order for probated suspension or something like that, formal disciplinary action. Or we may sometimes open them up and realize that there's no need to proceed, and those may be summarily cleared. So those, they may jump up for one reason or another, and a lot of times it just deals with the background history check process and how many renewals we may have in a given period of time. And this fitness determinations, those are people that are not licensed. So those are people that apply or they submit a fitness determination to make a determination if, based on their background history, if they would be eligible for a license or maybe a probationary license. So those are to distinguish those two types of cases.
thank you.
So on the page 34, the case aging, like Chelsea previously mentioned, 99% of the cases are within a year old, and 93% of those are within the 0 to 6 month range. There are 5 cases reflected on the SOA, reflected on the 12 to 18 month range. Those have either been closed or they're pending with SOA, related to SOA matters. And as of January 2025, the average time to resolve a consumer complaint is 75 days. Concluding with the subject categories on 35 and 36, there's been no significant changes to the last report, and the 3 categories remain: sales, other, licensure issues, and breach of fiduciary responsibilities. This concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll see you in a bit.
Tom Watson, Director of IT. Tom, we've used this word ramp a lot. Will you give the audience a little explanation what that is?
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. RAMP is essentially the core application used by the agency for all licensing activity. So it manages active licenses, applications, the education component, financial aspects, and enforcement. So it's a broad-based product that really drives how our organization operates. The information technology team is responsible for all IT activities within the agency. We deploy, we manage both hardware, software, document management, and data security throughout the agency. On page 37, we look at the online activities for both initial applications as well as renewals and website activity. It continues to be strong. It continues to be consistent. What I can say is if we take a look at this report after RAMP, what we are going to see is a dramatic difference in terms of breadth and utilization. So what I mean by that is with the agency initiative of transitioning away from paper and paper checks to online activities, we are going to see many more transactions in the application category up above there, as well as the renewal applications, and what we're now calling amendments or changes to the license. So we'll see a lot more categories that engage with our online product, allow the license holders and public to initiate license activity through the website rather than relying on paper. And what we are expecting to see is that the utilization rates here are going to dramatically increase to where all are approaching 100%. So right now we're looking at about 80, 90% for initial applications and renewals. we should see much closer, if not at 100% for all of those available services that we're going to be offering online. On page 38 is a visual representation of those numbers, again, showing consistency for online activity and utilization of the services we currently do offer. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Renata Williams, Chief Financial Officer. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Kestner, Commissioners. Renata Williams, Chief Financial Officer. It doesn't want to say. I serve as the Director for the Financial Services Division. My team is responsible for all aspects of revenue accounting, forecasting, accounts payable, travel, procurement, contracting, asset management. And today I'll be presenting the December 2024 staff reports for the Financial Services Division. Starting on page 39 is the quarterly revenue analysis. The overall actual revenue collection through December 31st was $4.1 million, which is about $500,000 less than our projected revenue target of 33.3%, or $4.6 million by the end of December. On page 40 is our quarterly expenditure analysis. Year-to-date expenditures are $6.3 million, and this is also below our target of 33.3% of expenditures by 4 months into the fiscal year. We projected to have closer to about $6.9 million by the end of December. On page 41, this is just a monthly graphical representation of a year-over-year comparison of revenue and expenditures for FY25 and FY24. As you can see, our revenue has been less than our expenditures, and historically, the trend in the fall and the winter months has been lower revenue collection, and then we typically see a swing in the spring and the summer months. Lastly, we'll go into our investment holdings reports, which is basically our ending balance in each of our portfolios, which is comprised of cash and the U.S. Treasury notes. Starting in account 3055, our account balance was $14.2 million. We had $5.1 in operating reserves, which left $9.1 million as the ending balance. On page 43, in account 3058, which is our real estate recovery fund, we had $4.1 million as our account balance, $472,000 reserved for potential payments within the next 90 days, which left us $3.6 million as the ending account balance. And lastly, on page 44 is account 3059, which is our real estate inspector recovery fund. Our ending account balance was $477,315.03. We actually have $12,500 reserved for a potential payment within the next 90 days. This is leaving us with $464,815.03 as our available balance. And there's a chart over to the right on that page where you can see that our last payment out of this fund was in fiscal year 2017. This concludes the report for the Financial Services Division. Are there any questions?
Mr. Pena.
Renata, at some point, are we going to move to a quarterly reporting on the PFI?
So I wanted to have that opportunity to talk with the Budget Committee and make sure that they were okay with that change before we do that. But I have proposed some drafts, but I wanted to give them the opportunity to weigh on it because we haven't had a Budget Committee meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Summer Mandel, Government and Strategic Communications Director.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, good morning, Chair Kasner, Commissioners. Great to see you all this year. Also, welcome to the Texas Realtors in the audience. Thanks for showing up today. I'm Summer Mandel, Government and Strategic Communications Director for TREC and also the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board, TALCB. And that's an independent subdivision of TREC. So most of you know me because of my role in communications, but I will be showing up again later at the workshop with my role in government relations. Essentially, this part of my job is very similar to what I do with the communications part of my job, and that I'm communicating with license holders and the public, except in the GR role, it's more focusing on communicating with legislative offices, stakeholder groups, staff, y'all. For purposes of this report, though, I'll be focusing on communications work from my small but mighty team, communications specialist Sierra Pizarro, who is over here with the camera, and myself. So our mission in comms is to create clear, useful information, trustworthy information for license holders, prospective license holders, the public. And we help our coworkers with their communications projects. We also work with the media when they reach out to us for information. Basically anyone who we need to communicate with, we're ready to help. And our goal is just to make it really easy for everyone to find what they need through a multitude of media. So that's videos like Sierra's working on right now. It's also on articles on our website, through courses like Legal Update, Broker Responsibility, and social media, of course. So in addition to these media, we send 4 e-newsletters, and anyone can sign up to receive these newsletters. You can go to trec.texas.gov/newsletters and find sign-up links for all of them. Each one is created with specific audiences in mind. So there's TREC Advisor, that's for all license holders. It covers information like meeting recaps, here, what we're doing today, also what the advisory committees are doing, useful clarifications about things like articles on transaction coordinators versus showing agents. And then we've got Inspector Insight, which, as the name suggests, is for inspector license holders or those interested in becoming one. Education Connection is for education providers. And then there's TALCB Advisor, which is, Bulletin, TALCB Bulletin, which is for appraisers, residential and commercial appraisers. We regulate on that side. So last fall, the agency moved our communications, our email marketing platform for communications from GovDelivery to Constant Contact. There are a few reasons why we made this change. First, there are more robust tools available so that we can refine the emails that we're sending to people. So you can't really see it here, but it's just supposed to give you an idea. So there's a screenshot of TREC Advisor, and on it there are these little circles with numbers in it. That's what they call heat mapping. It's essentially telling us where people click in an email. So we can look at that and see, what are people into. Here they're into images. So that will help us moving forward to have images and spark some interest there. Another tool we can use is polling. So we did this in the Education Connection newsletter, and we just asked, have you ever live streamed an ESAC meeting? And we got 36 responses, which isn't, representative data of the whole audience, but we learned that most people didn't even know that you could live stream the meetings. So that's just a fun little tidbit that we have. We can remember moving forward to educate folks on where they can go to sign up and watch those meetings and participate in the live stream. On the screenshot of Inspector Insight, that is a mobile preview. So basically, before we send any email, we can preview what it looks like on a desktop if you're going to open your email there, or if you're going to open it on your phone, just to make sure there's not anything weird going on with images or sizing. So these are actually things that we couldn't do before with our last tool. So this is pretty exciting. So it also gives us more reporting that's just going to help us refine these newsletters and make them better for the end user, our subscribers. And finally, a big benefit is that it comes at a substantial cost savings for the agency. So we're really just thrilled to have this email solution that also cuts expenses. The other item on my report is social media benchmarking. So essentially, and that's if you don't mind scrolling a little, MJ, thank you. Essentially, that's just comparing us to other regulatory agencies that are on our most popular social media platform, which is Facebook. Sierra manages our social media content and has been growing our followers over time. And I think the engagement and number of followers reflects that it's going well. Right now we're benchmarking against other regulatory agencies that have high numbers of real estate license holders. So that's Florida, California, New York, and you can see, sort of, if you have it printed out, you might see it better. But we have a solid page-like count versus the others, and we also have more followers and higher engagement. So I think that's pretty cool. Some social posts that stood out this quarter. 2 of the TREC 75th anniversary videos that Sierra produced featuring staff. One is featuring Director of Licensing Denise Sample, and she's sharing some cool tidbits about license history. Like in, 1954, we required a photograph to go along with your application. And then another video features Education Compliance Specialist Gwen Jackson, who's been with the agency for 43 years. So naturally, she's sharing some stuff about what's changed over the years, and I thought it was kind of cool that she said people used to smoke cigars and pipes in their offices, and now we have our first female executive director, Chelsea Buckholtz. So there's lots of changes that have gone on over time. And then some posts about transaction coordinators versus showing agents, contract changes. Those were very popular this quarter, with a combined reach of those posts on Facebook and Instagram at about 10,000 people. So as usual, Texas real estate brokers and sales agents stand out from the crowd, and we really are grateful to earn your follows and your likes and your subscriptions and all of that. And that concludes my report. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right, very good.
Thank you.
We will move to agenda item number 15, public comments. I've got 3 public comments and 1 email. Craig Smizer with EV Realty. Good morning.
Greetings, Chairman Kestner.
You'll be limited to 3 minutes, okay?
Yep, I'll be quick. My name's Craig Smizer with 5 Realty. I'm here to ask your help on a proposed change to the seller's disclosure notice under section 5.008B of the Texas Property Code. We have only 4 options for water supply. They are city, well, mud, and co-op. I propose that we need 2 more added to that. That would be water district and rainwater harvesting. Many homes that I serve are in a water district. The sellers asked, what should we choose? Obviously, I can't tell them. Even if I could, it would be, well, choose whatever you think is the closest to what it isn't. In addition, with rainwater harvesting, it's relatively new. I think I've got 2 clients who are served only by rainwater harvesting, but we'll see more of them. And I think as long as we're trying to make this change, it's a good time to do that as well. It seems like an easy change, except as you know, it's written into the statute, so we need the legislature to do it. And your help would be great on that because you have a better way to reach them than I do, or at least more weight with them. It's really a pretty simple change to make. It's literally 4 words and 2 blanks. So we can just get that maybe slid into something that's more important. Maybe it can get done this session. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And that will certainly go to broker lawyer. Okay. Pat Patton.
Commissioner.
Good morning.
Commissioners, my name is Pat Patton. I've had the honor to be a licensee in the great nation of Texas, let me correct that, for 50 years. And my purpose for speaking is all too often we don't take the time to let others know they're appreciated and say thanks. I'd like to say thanks to the Commission, the Texas Real Estate Commission, and especially the staff for 50 years of a wonderful relationship. Happy anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you. Kagi, you're good? Okay, all right. We have an email that was added to your supplement from David Frost been licensed several years, sponsoring broker in Texas, has concerns over the NAR lawsuit and local MLSs and associations billing for non-members. You know, as we stated, TREC was not involved in that lawsuit. We don't govern MLSs. We don't govern local associations. He's wanting us maybe to provide services for commission disputes, ethics violations, other violations. As governors, we govern only what the legislature tells us to do. There's probably some things out there that we might want to govern. There's probably some things we govern that we don't want to govern. But we govern what the legislature tells us to do. And, you know, whether you're here or send an email, this is in your supplement material, and I don't want anybody to think that we don't read it, we don't digest it, but there are only certain things that we have control of, and some of this stuff we don't have control of. So it was added to your supplement this morning, Friday, okay, which was several days ago. Okay, very good. That concludes the public comment. We will go to agenda item number 16. These are contested cases, and I'm going to kind of give you a little the way this is going to go. The case will be announced. We'll see if there's anybody here to speak for the respondent. Each party will be given 5 minutes. The staff will present first, the respondent, then the staff 5 minutes to rebuttal. Commissioners can certainly ask questions. Questions must be limited to what's on the record. And any questions, if they're represented by an attorney, needs to be addressed to the attorney, not the respondent. Okay. I believe I've got a timer here with 5 minutes, and we've got 5 minutes over there too as far as timing. Okay. I will announce agenda item 16A in consideration possible action regarding proposal for decision in the matter of SOA docket number 329-2409441, TREC versus Douglas St. Cyr. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the respondent? Yes. And your name is Roger Borgelt? Borgelt, okay. Okay. I will call on Director of Enforcement Michael Malloy to present first. You will be given 5 minutes. I'll ask Mr. Borgelt for 5 minutes, and let's go ahead and, good morning again.
Morning. So I'm here to present the Commission's position regarding the denial of Mr. St. Cyr's application for sales agent license. Our denial is based on several key factors that I'll go into for his fitness for licensure. First, the applicant has a significant and concerning criminal history. He has 25 felony convictions, which include 6 convictions for theft of property in the 3rd degree, 3 convictions for theft of property in the 2nd degree, 7 convictions for theft of property in the 4th degree, and 9 convictions for the possession of a forged instrument in the 3rd degree. These are serious financial crimes, all dealing with handling funds, a core responsibility for the real estate professional. Notably, these offenses were committed while he served on as a board member for a private school in Alabama. On May 1st, 2018, Mr. St. Cyr pleaded no contest and was sentenced to 48 months, which was suspended for 5 years of probation, and he completed that just in April of 2023. These are not youthful mistakes. They were committed when Mr. Cyr was 45 years old. Secondly, Mr. St. Cyr's lack of candor through the application process further undermines his untrustworthiness. He failed to notify the Commission of the full extent of his criminal history. First, when he submitted his fitness determination, he disclosed only 2 offenses. Despite this limited disclosure, the Commission did give him a favorable determination with the caveat that it was subject to change upon further review, which would happen when if you apply for a full license. However, when Mr. St. Cyr later submitted his sales application, he disclosed additional offenses, but still failed to disclose 9 of the 25 felonies, specifically the 9 convictions for possession of a forged instrument. So going into the PFD, the judge concluded that the omission was not false or misleading because the applicant believed the commission already knew about these offenses. Respectfully, this conclusion is incorrect. The commission does not have access to an applicant's full criminal history until the fingerprints are processed, which occurs later on in the application process. Mr. Sincere's first and best opportunity to fully disclose his criminal history was during the fitness determination, and he did not do so. Under Commission Rule 535-52B3, providing false and misleading information to the commission demonstrates a lack of honesty, trustworthiness, and integrity. Importantly, this rule does not require intent or deliberation, only that the information provided is false or misleading. His failure to disclose these 9 additional felonies after already having minimized his history during the fitness determination demonstrates a continued dishonest behavior. It strains his credibility to believe that it was an honest mistake. Lastly, the nature of these felonies is critical. These are financial crimes involving the handling of funds, activities that are central to brokerage activity. These convictions directly undermine the integrity and honesty required to be a real estate license holder. Staff acknowledges that Mr. Sincere has made efforts to rehabilitate himself. Chapter 53 does not close the door on anyone. However, sufficient time and additional evidence of rehabilitation, we believe, is still needed before he can meet our licensing standards. For these reasons, staff requests the proposal for decision be amended to reflect the denial of Mr. Sincere's application. Myself and the staff attorney who handled the case are available for questions.
Okay. Commissioner Pena?
Michael, I couldn't help but notice the PFD did not mention any amounts with respect to the theft. And so on page 7 of the PFD, it talks about 7 counts of theft of property, 4th degree, 6 counts of theft of property in the 3rd degree, and 3 counts of theft of property in the 2nd degree. Can you tell the commission what are the thresholds within the statute that constitute 2nd degree, 3rd degree, and 4th degree?
So this was in Alabama, so I don't know that question.
Okay.
Yeah, there were certain levels of, the monetary amounts.
So generally speaking, within, what constitutes a misdemeanor versus a felony, is there a minimum, at least a minimum threshold as the amounts that we're talking about here?
In Texas there is. I imagine Alabama would be no different.
Okay, so we don't know what those are.
I'm gonna have to defer. If Mace, you wanna?
You can ask him, their attorney. Okay.
Vice Counsel.
Oh, I'm Mace here.
Do you have that information? I can go get it. No, that's fine. No, we don't have that information available, so.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Mr. Borgell? Again, you will have 5 minutes. I'll try to give you a 2-minute, 1-minute warning. Okay.
Thank you,
Good
Mr.
morning.
Chairman, and good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm here today with Mr. St. Cyr, and he certainly takes the allegations against him very seriously. Our request to you is simply to follow the administrative law judge's recommendations. We believe that she did a good job of evaluating all of the circumstances of this case in terms of the incident that resulted in all of these criminal convictions. I don't blame the staff for flagging this application. On its face, it looks very, very serious, and I certainly don't blame them for flagging it. But I think as you read the PFD and evaluate what happened here, this was one very misguided but serious incident that resulted in all of these convictions. In the state of Alabama, these convictions are, and I'm not a criminal defense lawyer, so I don't really understand this, but in the state of Alabama, all of these convictions were stacked. They basically involved one incident of him trying to cover funds on this board that he was working on and doing things with the bank accounts that he should not have done. But again, every single one of these convictions stems out of that one incident. And Mr. St. Cyr definitely did make one very, very serious mistake here. He's very obviously apologetic about it. He's sorry about it. He drove down from Prospero this morning to be here because even though the judge recommended in his favor, he wanted you to know how seriously he takes this, and he certainly has taken steps toward rehabilitation. The evidence reflects that, in fact, one of his employers, after all of this occurred, the employer who knew about this incident, gave him fiduciary responsibilities in his business, which he handled very effectively and responsibly, and that is in the evidence that's in the PFD. So, you know, we would simply ask that you follow the recommendation. We believe that the administrative law judge correctly evaluated all of your criteria for evaluating criminal history and background and fitness, and that Mr. St. Cyr does in fact meet the qualifications for a license. He's completed his schooling. He very definitely wants to have a real estate license. He spent lots of time and money and effort, both in education and legal fees, in attempting to obtain a real estate license, and he would really, really like to be a licensed real estate agent in Texas. And I'm not going to take my full 5 minutes. We simply just ask that you follow the recommendation of the administrative law judge.
Questions? Commissioner Pena.
Mr. Burgell, with respect to the counts on theft of property, were all those related to the reimbursement checks that he made to himself?
Yeah, there was the reimbursement to himself, and there was forgery where he and another board member were signing checks for each other. They shouldn't have been doing that, but all of this related to that same thing, yes, the theft of property.
What was the span between the time that the school closed down and all this came to light?
It took about 18 months for it to come to light, but it all came to light and it was all charged and pled to in one incident.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right. You mentioned an employer. Was that Mr. Podolsky?
Yes.
Okay. And in the PFD, it talks about he was employed from February 2020 to June of 22 as a company CFO. And then he left, was rehired. And at that time when he was rehired, I guess Mr. Podolsky ran the background check and found the charges. So that had not been disclosed to Mr. Podolsky in the beginning of employment?
He was not doing background checks when he was initially employed.
And so it was not disclosed?
Right.
But when he was rehired, then his job was limited to, I think it said, no access for payments. Less accounting and no access to payments on the second hire, correct? Is that what the PFD says?
I still had credit card access and used credit card charges and stuff like that, and I still paid bills. I just was not keeping the books at that time. I was taking a different position because I told him I didn't want to.
So you still had access to make payments?
Yes, sir. I still had access to make payments, and also had a company credit card as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Pena.
So after the school closed, the board of directors ceased to meet as a collective body?
We originally had 13 board members. By the time
Attorney
the
needs.
school closed, sorry.
I guess the attorney needs to answer or
Well, I don't-
step up, either one.
I don't know the facts, so
Okay.
you're gonna have to.
Is that okay? But I don't want to overstep. Okay. Originally, we had 13 board members. After the school closed, there were 7 of us left that were still actually paying the bills. The other 6 dropped out and said we're out. Even though we still had financial fiduciary duties, we were on the banknote for the loan for the building itself as well, and we're still having to maintain that, and water and insurance and things as well. We went through a sale to try to make up for some of those funds, but then we would meet once a month and to pay those bills, but some of them would not come. Some of them would not have their money, and so I would make payments based off of that and knowing that the money was going to come eventually, and then reimburse myself.
So the PFD mentions that you and other board members would cover some of the expenses.
Correct, yes, sir.
Now, did that cover include directly from your bank account, or did it come from the school's bank account?
So we would meet, the ones that would have the money would be deposited into the school bank account, of which me and the president of the board were on to be able to sign for those checks. But the money that I was paying myself was paying out of my bank account, and then I would reimburse myself for the bills that I didn't have the funds to cover out of the school bank account.
Other than the one person that knew you were forging his signature, were any of the board members aware of this?
No, sir.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Malloy? You have an opportunity for rebuttal, and I'll give you 5 minutes.
I mean, more or less, I'd just like to reiterate our concerns. I mean, it's a significant number of felonies, and they dealt with finance-related things, and clearly, based on even the answers you got today, he wasn't letting people know he was doing it, which kind of goes to what we reflects on how he revealed his background to us. So we got the fingerprints, we didn't know the extent, and throughout the whole process, he did not prove trustworthy in order to maintain our standards. So.
Okay. Any other questions for Director Malloy? Okay, thank you. We will move to agenda item 17. Move to executives.
More.
Oh, well, no, I'm sorry. Yes. Point of order. Okay. Agenda item 16B, in consideration and possible action regarding proposal for decision in the matter of SOA docket 329-2411341, TREC versus Kyle Kinsey. Is there anybody here to speak on behalf of the respondent? You're Kyle Kinsey? Okay. All right. Same process. Director Malloy will start. You'll have 5 minutes, and then we'll go ahead. Director Malloy.
All right. So the applicant had the burden of proof in this matter. This matter does not deal with criminal history, but the applicant's law licenses that were disciplined. The PFD, I think, very much well highlights the reasons why the Illinois Bar and Texas Bar took actions to discipline his licenses in the ways he did not. He harmed his clients. His Texas Bar license will be on probated suspension until at least June of 2025. And the ALJ, after weighing the evidence provided by the applicant, determined that they did not meet the burden of proof. The ALJ did make note that some of the reasons why the applicant was disciplined were similar in nature to the fiduciary obligations that a real estate license holder performs. Therefore, staff recommends adoption of this proposal for decision, recommending the denial of Mr. Kinsey's application for a sales agent license.
Any questions for Director Malloy? Okay, thank you. Mr. Kinsey? Again, we'll give you 5 minutes. I'll give you a 2-minute, 1-minute warning. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Kyle Kinsey. I'm an attorney. I've been licensed in Texas since 1997, in Illinois since 1996. I was also a licensed real estate broker in Illinois for about 10 years. I wasn't using the license very much, and I just let it lapse. I'm married, I have 4 children. I applied for a Texas real estate license because I want to get active in the real estate market again. I took the required classes. I believe as an attorney, I'm already authorized to act as a real estate broker in most respects, and as a real estate agent, just through the law license. I've been active in the practice of law. My ability to practice law has not been restricted. TREC evaluates each applicant individually and considers factors such as honesty, trustworthiness, and integrity. The Commission failed to identify which factor was not met and merely indicated that it can deny the license because there's been disciplinary violations. I'm currently authorized to act as a lawyer. That was not restricted. The Texas Bar, the Illinois Bar declined to restrict my practice. 3 witnesses testified in my behalf, my integrity, my trustworthiness, and my honesty. I acknowledge that TREC has its own rules and it's free to make a different decision, but using the broad stroke, the Commission determined that I'm unfit because I had a censure and a fully probated suspension. I don't believe that these bar disciplinary actions impugn my honesty, integrity, and trustworthiness. I think due process is the issue, and that using a broad stroke to we're using a broad stroke without determining which violation is at issue makes it difficult to respond. And although if the board can deny my real estate license just because there are 2 disciplinary actions, then what's the point of having the hearing and the process? So please consider these factors when you make a decision. Thank you.
Commissioner Pena.
Sir, are you still practicing law in Texas?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And in the other states, Illinois?
Illinois. In Illinois, I practice federal. My Texas license is the only one active right now.
Okay, you mentioned, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And it's currently not on probated or any status?
Illinois has a reciprocal discipline process. So Illinois and the Northern District of Illinois applied the same fully probated suspension that Texas entered for the same thing.
Okay. And so Texas is also a probated license?
Texas is where I got the suspension, the fully probated suspension.
Thank you.
I'm curious, you mentioned lack of due process. Was that on the probated law license or the lack of due process through the process of getting a real estate license?
No, it's just through getting the real estate license. And my issue is that the commission and the prosecution arm should determine, okay, was it your honesty, was it your trustworthiness, was it your integrity that's impugned? And I would argue that the events that happened in my bar discipline do not impugn those things.
But you think the due process was there in the process of giving your law license or probationary status, suspension probated, I think is what you used. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Director Malloy.
I can assure you he was given full due process. He was able to go to full hearing and argue his points of why he deserved a license. The burden of proof was on them, and the judge didn't feel that he met the burden of proof. I will mention that, mention there was only one person that testified. There were 2 other, letters of recommendation, but only one person testified on the behalf. I would point out for the conclusions of law, here's the rule that we go by. It says conduct that tends to demonstrate an applicant does not possess the requisite honesty, untrustworthiness, and integrity action taken against the applicant's professional license in any state, and that's a rule 535.52B4.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Abby, can I go agenda item 17 now? Okay. Agenda item 17, we'll go into executive session to discuss litigation or obtain advice of legal counsel on agenda items pursuant Texas Government Code 551.071 and personnel matters relating to the performance review of the executive director pursuant to the Texas Government Code 551.074. It is approximately 11:50. I think we'll be in executive session for 1 hour. We'll be back here by 12:50, so you can grab something to eat. Oh, if you, do they sign out as they're leaving now and sign back in? At the end of the meeting, you can sign out. Session at 12:50 p.m. We will go back to agenda item number 16. I'll announce agenda item 16A, consideration possible action regarding proposal of decision in the matter of SOA docket 32924094441 TREC versus Douglas St. Cyr. I know Director Malloy is here. Mr. St. Cyr, you're also present. Okay. Is Mr. Burgut here? Okay. Very good. I will ask Director Malloy to come up first. Commissioners, any questions for Director Malloy? Any questions? You gave some numbers earlier where, and I'm trying to figure out, some were disclosed on the predetermination and some on the actual application.
Correct.
Do you have those numbers just?
So in the fitness determination, he disclosed two of the offenses. And then on his application, he disclosed all of them except 9.
Okay. All but 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on the fitness determination, those were the least egregious of the crimes that were disclosed, correct?
It's like a theft. It was some of the lower level ones. I believe it was outlined in the PFD there.
Right.
So.
Okay. Any other questions for Director Malloy? Okay. Any questions for Douglas St. Cyr? Questions? I've got one if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned earlier when you went to work for Mr. Podolsky that you left from February 20 to June of 22, and then you came back. In the PFD, it said that he ran that criminal history and your position was involving less accounting and no access to payments. So at that time you had no access to make 2 payments. Is that correct? Is the PFD correct?
I was originally, when I went back to him, I was hired as the office manager. At that time, no, I didn't have the access to pay bills, but it grew into me doing so.
Okay, I didn't see where that was in the PFD, but I just want to make sure that was the second time that you went back to Mr. Podolsky.
Yes, sir. And I left there also to do an accounting position at another company as well.
Okay.
So, and I'm currently working as an accounting manager as well. So.
For Mr. Podolsky?
No, sir. I actually work for Associa, HOA Management Group now.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Okay. The chair would certainly entertain a motion or further discussion.
Mr. Chairman, based on Mr. St. Cyr's criminal history and providing false and misleading information to the commission, I would move to deny his application for sales license. Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Brown, second by Commissioner Woodruff. Any further discussion? Commissioner Pena?
I'd just like to say that, when we're put in fiduciary duties and responsibilities with respect to funds, I'm a forensic accountant, and I've seen this time and time again where people do not actually realize the implications of cutting a check to yourself. There's times when someone at my office will present me a check payable to me, and I said, I will absolutely not sign it. I'd get another partner to sign it, because you never know what's gonna happen 2 weeks, a month, a year, where people are gonna forget the context of that check. And so just as a general, never cut a check to yourself in any capacity, in any shape or form, because even though the intent may be innocent for expediency purposes, someone could always bring that back and allege fraud. And 9 times out of 10, and I would venture to say that it's gonna be almost 10 times out of 10, you will end up in the losing side, because there is no way to prove that there was not a fraudulent intent. And so we only have what is on the prima facie, that you cut a check to yourself and deposit into your bank account. And so I would caution everybody, especially all the agents and brokers, to be very, very careful when cutting checks, or you all are fiduciaries. You got a fiduciary responsibility to those funds, and any hint of impropriety can and will be used against you. And so just be careful when cutting checks like that. You don't have to do that. Get someone else to do it. If your name is on the check, you don't want to be the signer. And so I'll just leave you all with that. I've seen it as a fraud investigator in my career, and a lot of people have gone down because of that very thing. So I just give you some caution.
I will add, I think this motion goes back to the failure to disclose, and the statute clearly states you disclose, and whether it's intentional or non-intentional, we don't have the flexibility of deciding if it's intentional or not intentional. Looking at the PFD, I mean, there's a lot of circumstances there that, you know, that maybe lean the other direction, but the fact is the ALJ was very inconsistent in enforcing our statute that you disclose. And my problem is disclose part now, and then not all part, and whether intentional or not, our statute does not give us the ability to determine intent. Any further discussion on the motion?
I would just say that as real estate agents, that you know, handling funds in a casual manner, if that's the right case, will always get someone in trouble. Again, as Commissioner Pena said, intent for efficiency or to expedite things isn't going to be a good reason, particularly when you look at the dollar amounts and just the number of times we have responsibility for getting funds to the right place. So.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Anybody need the motion repeated? You want to repeat the motion?
The motion was based on Mr. St. Cyr's criminal history and providing false and misleading information to the commission. I move to deny his application for a sales agent license.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carried. Okay. We will go back to agenda item number 16B, in consideration and possible action regarding proposal for decision in the matter of SOA docket 329-2411341, TREC versus Kyle Kinsey. Is Mr. Kinsey still here? Okay. Any questions for Director Malloy? Hearing no questions, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the PFD as written.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Woodruff, second by Commissioner Brown. Discussion, Commissioner Pena. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Okay. We'll move on to agenda item 18, report regarding the recovery fund. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. For the record, Abby Lee, General Counsel. Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I am here to present Agenda Item 18, which is the report regarding denial of recovery fund claims. For those in the audience who may not be familiar with the recovery fund process or what it is, the recovery fund is a fund whose purpose is to reimburse consumers for harm caused by license holders. The specifics are actually set out by Texas law, and under Texas law, to be entitled to reimbursement from the fund for conduct by a license holder, an aggrieved person must demonstrate that they suffered actual damage caused by conduct that requires a license under the Real Estate License Act, Chapter 1101 of the Occupations Code, and that the conduct has to be specifically described in statute. It's 1101.652A11 or B. As to the report today, the Commission has a policy which delegates authority to staff to deny certain recovery fund claims, and that policy also requires staff to provide a summary report of those denials to the Commission at its quarterly meeting. So please note you did receive copies of the denial letters under separate cover, and as a reminder, this does not require any action by the Commission. It's just a report. So Agenda Item 18A is the report regarding denial of recovery fund claim RF 24004, Michael Laster versus Russ Davis, Joanna Wheeler, and Paragon Gold Realty LLC. This claim was denied because the conduct described in the original petition, activity in connection with a construction agreement, is not conduct requiring a license, which is, of course, a requirement under Texas law. Agenda Item 18B is the report regarding denial of recovery fund claim RF 25001, Jamie Hurtado and Stephanie Sacido. The claim was denied because there were no actual damages awarded in the underlying claim or the underlying case. In order to be eligible under Texas law, again, the claimant has to demonstrate that they suffered actual damages, which was not the case here. And then finally, Agenda Item 18C is the report regarding denial of recovery fund claim for RF 25002, 5K Realty Group LLC versus Key Group Realty. The claim was denied because the conduct described in the original petition was related to monies held associated with an alleged breach of an employment or work agreement between a licensed real estate sales agent and a licensed real estate broker. This, again, is not eligible under the fund. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You'll go and go to Agenda Item 19?
Yes. So switching gear here, we are moving to the rule portion of the agenda. So sort of unusual in this particular meeting that we don't have any proposed rules, just rules up for adoption. So what that means is that the rules before you today have already been proposed back in November by the Commission. They went out for notice and public comment, and now you are hearing them again today to decide if you want to vote to adopt these rule changes. So Agenda Item 19 is discussion and possible action to adopt amendments to 22 TAC 531.20, information about brokerage services. The amendments to 531.20 and the form adopted by reference, of course, the information about brokerage services notice, or the IABS, are made as a result of recent industry changes surrounding broker compensation to clarify to the consumer that any brokerage fees are not set by law and are negotiable. We did receive comments. We received 3 comments on the proposed changes. 2 comments requested alternative or additional language be added regarding the negotiability of compensation, and 1 comment requested a formatting change. We reviewed these comments. Staff believes the proposed language addresses the concerns raised in the comments and recommends making no changes to the form at this time. So as a result, the staff recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of the Commission to submit for adoption amendments to 22 TAC 531.20 as published, along with the form adopted by reference to the Texas Register, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for adoption. Importantly, the IBS 1-1, the updated form, the revised form adopted for reference would be available for voluntary use until after it is posted on the TREC website until April 1st, 2025, at which time its use will become mandatory. And the goal there is to kind of give a runway so people can have enough time to get into compliance.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Woodruff, Commissioner Brown to adopt staff's recommendation.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Woodruff. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Agenda item number 21.
Agenda item 21 is the discussion and possible actions to adopt amendments. No, I'm sorry. I think it's 20. Sorry. Agenda item 20 is discussion and possible action to adopt new Rule 22 TAC 534.8, Employee Sick and Family Leave Pools. The new rule addresses the operation and procedures of both the Employee Sick and Family Leave Pool required by Sections 661.002 and 022 of the Government Code. No comments were received. Therefore, the staff recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of the Commission to submit for adoption new Rule 22 TAC 534.8 as published to the Texas Register, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for adoption.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Woodruff. Second, Commissioner Brown. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Agenda item 21.
Agenda item 21 is discussion and possible action to adopt amendments to 22 TAC Chapter 535 as follows. 535.65, responsibilities and operations of providers of qualifying courses. 535.70, definitions, and 535.72, approval of non-elective continuing education courses. You heard a little bit about this earlier in the ESAC report, but the proposed amendments were originally recommended by the Education Standards Advisory Committee, or ESAC, and also the Texas Real Estate Inspector Committee. The full summary of the proposed changes are in your materials, but essentially the committee had two recommendations. The first was to replace the phrase check photo identification in the rule with verify the identity to make that broader. And then the second change was to remove the requirement to have a qualifying course examination proctored, and to have a proctor in situations where a course is delivered through use of technology and there are more than 20 students at a remote site. We did receive one comment in support of the proposed changes. As you heard, ESAC met in January, and after further review and discussion of the proposed changes, ESAC requested that because of the removal of proctoring requirements, additional changes be made to also remove the closed book requirements found within the rules. As a result, ESAC recommended withdrawing the proposed amendments at this time for possible reproposal at the May 2025 Commission meeting to give ESAC enough time to review those draft changes at its April meeting. So therefore, the staff recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of the Commission to withdraw amendments to 22 TAC 535.65, 535.70, and 535.72 from the Texas Register.
Motion to withdraw.
Motion
Staff.
withdrawal made, Commissioner Woodruff. Second, Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? Hargraves, I'm sorry. Any discussion on the motion to withdraw? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Agenda item number 22.
Agenda item 22 is discussion and possible action to adopt amendments to 22 TAC Chapter 535 as follows. 535.191 Schedule of Administrative Penalties and 535.219 Schedule of Administrative Penalties. One is for the real estate broker agent side, the other is an inspector rule. The amendments to 535.191 and 535.219 clarify that a person may only pay an administrative penalty in an authorized manner, and also add that if an online payment is authorized, such a payment may be subject to fees set by DIR, the Department of Information Resources, that are in addition to the administrative penalty assessed by the Commission. As I think I mentioned in November, this is one of the first sort of set of rules that you're seeing as a result of RAMP and some of the changes coming from there. No comments were received, and so the staff recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of the Commission to submit for adoption amendments to 22 TAC 535.191 and 219 as published to the Texas Register, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for adoption.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Brown. Second, Commissioner Woodruff. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Agenda item 23
Agenda item 23, you've also heard a little bit about this already, is discussion and possible action to adopt amendments to 22 TAC 537.45, standard contract form, TREC number 38-7, notice of buyer's termination of contract. The Texas Real Estate Broker Lawyer Committee recommended revisions to paragraph 2 of the notice of buyer's termination of contract to ensure that the buyer has delivered the lender's written statement to the seller in accordance with the recent changes to paragraph 2A, buyer approval of the third-party financing addendum. No comments were received on the proposed changes, and the staff recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of the Commission to submit for adoption amendments to 22 TAC 537.45 as published, and the form adopted by reference to the Texas Register, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for adoption. Similarly, the notice of buyer's termination of contract, TREC number 38-8, will be available for voluntary use until after it's posted on the TREC website until April 1st, 2025, when its use becomes mandatory.
Okay.
So moved.
Motion made to approve staff recommendation by Commissioner Woodruff. Second, Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Okay. Agenda item 24.
Agenda item 24 is discussion and possible action to propose the review of 22 TAC Chapter 537, Professional Agreements and Standard Contracts, and 22 TAC Chapter 543, Rules Relating to the Provisions of the Texas Timeshare Act. So we're switching gears now from adopted rules. We're looking now at rule review. And rule review is the process I like to describe as spring cleaning. It's an opportunity, but it's also required by law, where agencies must review their rules no later than 4 years to really determine whether the reason for the rule continues to exist, whether any changes need to be made, and again, this is something required by statute as well. So the particular chapters we're going to look at this year are 537 and 543. This is just opening up that process. To the extent there are any changes, you'll see those later this year. So formally, pursuant to the Government Code 2001.039, the Commission rules found within these chapters will be reviewed and considered for readoption, revision, or repeal. The review will include whether the reasons for initially adopting these rules continue to exist. The staff recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of the Commission to submit the review of 22 TAC Chapters 537 and 543 as presented, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for proposal to the Texas Register for publication and public comment.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Brown.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Hartgraves, or Commissioner Russell. Any discussion?
Abby,
Yes.
this is part of the quadrennial review,
Correct.
right? That just comes, you're just doing them in sections every year?
Yeah, so in the past, we used to do it all in 1 year. Within the past couple of years, we've moved to a rolling basis, which I think gives members of the public more time to look at the rules than were maybe previously allowed under the prior process.
Yeah, the once every 4 years is a heavy lift.
It's a heavy lift, for sure, yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. All right, agenda item 25, we've already completed. We'll go to agenda item 26, discussion and possible action regarding annual performance review and salary of TREC Executive Director Chelsea Buckholz. You want to take the stand? Raise your right hand and repeat after me. Just for the people that are visiting, we review Chelsea's job performance every year. She answers to these 9 commissioners. She also answers to the 9 board members of the appraisal board. And then there is a sampling of staff that also has a weigh in along with directors of the departments. And so it's a pretty thorough evaluation. I will tell you, I will start when I got here in 2019 versus where it's at in 2025. This is a different agency, and I know you're at the head of it, and you've done an incredible job. But I think everybody knows it's not the head of the agency. It's the staff you put and the people you put in the key position. I am a huge fan of good to great, the bus, putting the people in the right seat. I think you have done that tremendously over the last 5 years, and especially this last year. We have things handed to us. You know, we now have to track homeowners associations. We now have business registration. We have the NAR lawsuit that did not impact us, but certainly impacted us. And you have led by example. And I think during the search, when we were searching, and I don't think we would have found anybody better. And I just say, I think you've done an incredible job. You recognize where you might need improvement, and that's the real estate industry in general. You said your only experience is you bought a house. We pretty much decided you probably couldn't pass the broker's test, but you certainly understand our industry, and that's because you outreach. The people in our industry, Texas Realtors, TLTA, local associations, they reach out to you, and they reach out to you because they know you've got the resources to help them with what they're dealing with. So I've just got kudos. Commissioner Pena?
You know, it's one thing to get reviewed by your boss, but it's another thing to be reviewed by the people who you supervise. That gives you a true feeling of how they view you, and it's one of those things that I myself welcome to get feedback from the people that I supervise, because I want to be a leader, right? And I must say that in looking at the responses that we got from the directors and the staff at TREC regarding your review, they were all very consistent, and they were all very positive about your performance. So that gives me a sense of pleasure that you are doing the right things, and people look up to you, and you have the respect. And I think one of the common words that were used in there were respect, and you treat everybody very fairly, and so thank you for being that leadership that we need. You certainly have a lot of irons in the fire. There's the ramp coming up. We have a legislative session. We've got a new chair coming on here, maybe in the next few months. Not that, Scott, we want to tomorrow. But there's a lot of moving parts to the commission these days, and so I just want to say that we're very proud of you. I'm very proud of you. Thank you for being responsive to my questions, to my nagging, and thank you for prodding me when I needed to move, and do something. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Woodruff.
Well, first I'll echo all those comments, and maybe times two on a few of those points. But I would say, as a broker whose company interacts with the agency daily because of our size, et cetera, that your leadership has permeated the entire organization, and our interface or interaction with the agency versus 4, 5, 6 years ago is totally different today. And I think that's because of the staff you've built, and the leadership, and the way you deal with people, and then the way they deal with their customers. And I think that's not easy, so it's to be congratulated. And then I will say, as I kind of, I guess, finish my 4th year here on the commission, that I've learned a lot from you, and I've seen you grow as well. And so I would just say, to Ben's point, yes, there'll be even more moving parts than there has been, which have increased, as Scott mentioned. And I look forward to you continuing to take this agency where we need to go over the next several years. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner.
To echo those comments, I also would just like to add that, I think one of the things we talked about earlier was communication, and how important that element has been. And we were kind of joking that once upon a time, if you wanted to call TREC, you needed to block an hour, 55 minutes of which you'd be on hold. But today, I think that it goes beyond just time to respond and things like that. I think really the feeling amongst the licensees, but also the feeling amongst the trade organizations and our partners and stakeholders is that because the door is open for communication, they have an ally and an asset in the Real Estate Commission, where before that relationship might have been a little more adversarial. And I think that that is in large part to your leadership. And so both congratulations and thank you.
Yeah, Chelsea, I would also echo those comments, but I've also appreciated the increased communication with the commissioners, and certainly with me. Anything that I've needed, you've been very helpful with it. I really appreciate it. So, thank you.
Commissioner Russell.
Well, I came on the same time you did, and I have watched and appreciate your judgment when a position becomes open, that you've looked within and recognized the talent that's here and moved people up into those positions. And I think that's really, really great. And your open door and always being there to hear us out, I appreciate all of those positions that you've made. I'm sure it must be good to work for you because you show your judgment and trust in them, and they seem to reciprocate by not disappointing at all. So I appreciate your judgment, Kelsey.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, Chelsea, I'll turn your mic on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for those comments. If it takes a village to raise a child, it certainly takes a village to do this job. And I'm grateful for those I work with in this agency for their commitment to excellence and also their grace with each other. I feel like we have created a team that gives the benefit of the doubt and that wants to be good at our jobs. And I am so proud of the work of everyone at TREC, and especially our leadership team. And also part of that village is each of you. Thank you for also your grace and your guidance and your expertise. I did not grow up in real estate, but many of you did, and your teaching and expertise has been monumental to my success here. And also those relationships outside of TREC, those that I've acquired, that just maintained over the course of a career, and those that I've benefited from in the industry. I'm thankful for all of the moving parts to make TREC good at its mission. We have more work to do, always, and so we approach each day humbly, and I do today. I'd like to crawl under this podium right about now. Just your kind comments are humbling to me, but I appreciate them.
Okay, I would like to move to increase the executive director's salary by 3% effective March 1st, 2025.
Second.
Motion, I got a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move to agenda item 26, 27, future agenda items. If you know anything you want on the future agenda, let us know. Future meetings, agenda item 28, San Antonio, Cinco de Mayo. Anybody here from San Antonio? No pressure on you, but when we were in Dallas last May, we had to stop the meeting to get more room for people to attend. Absolutely no pressure on San Antonio, but Dallas set the level. And then we'll meet August 11th in Austin, a workshop on August 12th if needed. November the 3rd and November the 4th. Workshop in Austin the 3rd and 4th. Meeting on the 3rd, workshop on the 4th. And if there's nothing else, I will adjourn this meeting at 1:23 p.m. If you're going to the workshop, probably a 10-minute recess, then we'll start the workshop upstairs. There is no CE for the workshop, but you're welcome to attend.
We are adjourned.